Shall we get started then, guys?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, sweet. So, Milda, do you want to just kind of introduce what you do, just to kick it off?
Okay, so my experience is primarily in governance, risk, and compliance. I've been working for nearly 7 years now in cybersecurity, doing various types of implementing programs in governance and doing various assessments and helping companies be compliant. But in the past year, I decided to move a little bit into areas that I like more. So this is incident response and threat intelligence. This is something I've been very interested in the past as well, but just historically, I didn't work on it that much. So over the past year, I've been working with the Security Operations Center team, helping them on a variety of threat advisory work. So this is something that is actually interesting to me much more in the past year. I think this is maybe a kind of lockdown influence, just because I found I had more time to do more things and learn something new. So I decided that I will do what I always wanted to learn, and there it is. So
Brilliant.
Amazing.
So how did you make that change, Milda? So how did you sort of merge into sort of blue teaming from GRC?
I wouldn't say that has. I didn't make the full transition yet, so I'm still primarily working in GRC. But I think this is very much my own initiative, and because I want to do it, so I keep going around and asking for it, and I think I'm very lucky that I have this opportunity. And obviously, it is beneficial for everyone. I want to learn. The company wants to utilize my time. Team needs help. So there you go. It's everybody's benefit, so to say.
Everyone wins.
Exactly, yeah. So I think this is very good, and even no matter from which angle you look at it, even if, let's say, I wanted to stay in GRC, expanding that technical knowledge and understanding about the incident management side is very, very useful, especially because typically people in GRC tend to be not very technical. It's quite easy to come into GRC from other industries, or when you just start the career and you've not done anything in security, it's quite easy to get into GRC. So people tend to pigeonhole themselves in that area and try to not move anywhere else because it's difficult to understand technology, or it takes more practice and it's more difficult, I'd say.
Yeah, so, and they just kind of get more comfortable where they are as well.
Exactly. So I think it's very good to experience that type of work, especially knowing how incident happens, what kind of thinking do attackers have, but that's more pen testing, maybe that's red teaming, but it's still, if you know how to attack, you'll know how to defend. If you know how to defend, you'll know how to attack. So both ways, I would say. So it's very good for expanding GRC skills, or even if you want to move onwards as well, it's useful.
Yeah, definitely. So what would you say have been sort of like the new things that you've picked up that were different from GRC whilst sort of making that transition into blue teaming?
Loads of skills are different, I would say. For example, in GRC, people probably the primary thing that is different is the kind of tools and the kind of technology that you use, because in GRC, usually you don't need to use any particular tool. The probably most complex tool is going to be Microsoft Office type of environment, Excel spreadsheets and that kind of thing, unless potentially clients use some sort of software for, let's say, risk management or something like it. Maybe Jira, that's a very complex ticketing tool. But then when you move into incident management and blue teaming, depending also which area of blue teaming we're speaking about. For example, if we speak even forensics, that's going to require loads of knowledge in specific tools. But I would say network administration, sort of Linux, for example, is a basic. You would need to know that, and be able to understand what's happening with systems. So how do you detect what is wrong? You need to understand how systems function. What does it mean when some file is accessing something? Is it good? Is it bad? How you need to investigate why it's happening, essentially. So you need to understand a lot about technology and a lot about the systems that you work in. And every system is different as well. Like if we're speaking about Windows, well, that's one thing. We're speaking about cloud system, that's entirely something else. So there you go. It is. I don't think that every incident responder, or even let's say blue teaming person, will have all the skills. It's also something pretty broad, I would say. For example, somebody could be SOC analyst. They won't necessarily do the full incident handling, or they won't necessarily do the threat hunting, or they won't necessarily do the forensic analysis. So it's also different in that team.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to say hi to Daniel Nadim. He's done a coffee morning with us before as well. So thank you for joining. He's asking, what's the biggest challenge when learning about IR and SOC when you have a GRC background, and are you using any technical resources to learn about these areas?
Well, yes. I mean, there's... where do I even start? There are loads of resources available. I would say, I mean, this year actually was quite, I would say it's an amazing year because there were so many resources made available online. Many of them actually were for free. So it was just a matter of making time and finding those resources and also doing them, because there were loads available. And probably another thing that is quite difficult is when you transition, when you want to do something new, it could be quite overwhelming and daunting. You're just not sure where to start with. So somebody needs to kind of put that kind of structure in place for you. So I would say for somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience in cyber, it could be really difficult to know, where do I even, what do I need to do with this information in security, security incident handling. But I would say I just started from the beginning. I started reading about what is an incident, what is threat intelligence, how things happen. I researched various people telling about what kind of skills they built. Starting from the basics, learning Linux administration, understanding how Windows and Linux systems work. So you kind of want to build that foundation. Then there are also quite a few free tools, free resources available. For example, I've taken free training from a company called Black Hills Information Security. They actually advertise these courses a lot because they want to promote this across the community and help people who either have no skills or want to transition like I did, or somebody who wants to expand skills. They just give out this free training for everyone to try and reduce that barrier for entry to people into cybersecurity. And I think that's great. So there's actually one course upcoming in, I think, a week. I think it's next week. So if somebody wants to attend that, it's actually really good. So that's, they call themselves BHIS, Black Hills Information Security.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to share like a link to it in the Cyber Lounge, that'd be great. And then other people can join in as well.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, Jack, what's your opinion?
I mean, I agree completely with that Windows and Linux thing, because I've been dealing with a lot of clients, and sort of the backbone of all sort of incident response seems to be that understanding of Windows and Linux. Like a lot of them, all of the requirements has been Windows and Linux forensics experience and stuff like that. And then regarding to the tools, when I was speaking with a few candidates, I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Milda, but when I speak with a lot of incident respondent candidates, they always sort of say, tools are tools. You don't you can pretty much use them universally. What are your thoughts on that, Milda? Do you think that's sort of a common thing?
Yes, I would say, well, I'm not necessarily how do I explain it better? I think people who are not tied to the tools are better in what they do because they can use anything. They can build their own tool. I mean, to do incident management and generally blue teaming, you don't need tools. Tools are there to help. I mean, it's great to have them, but typically the people who are able to function without tools, they will do better job just because once they find out themselves not having a tool, they will invent one. They build scripts and they will, make their lives easier. But if somebody is used to working with a tool or variety of tools and things being done for them, they don't necessarily know how things happen, or the full sort of circle of everything that is going on there. They need something to help them do it. So I think, that I would have the same opinion. You can have tools, but if you don't know how things work, tools are not that great.
Yeah.
We've just had another question pop up from Ian. With regard to resource that requires security clearance on project-sensitive accounts, how does your company ensure compliance and continue the compliance throughout the project life cycles?
Oh, so that's for people who require clearance to be able to work on projects. Is that how I understand it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what you're saying.
To be honest, I didn't really have experience working on sensitive projects like that. But if that's a requirement for client engagement, then clearly either people who have that clearance are selected, or if the person who can definitely do that and nobody can do that, then they go do that clearance. In some cases, let's say where you have maybe a really good specialist, but they are just, I don't know, a year in the country and they can't yet do the clearance because 3 years at least required. It's just other ways around. I think it's just people are being used who don't have that kind of problem, who can go undergo the clearance, or other arrangements are in place. Like, for example, I'm thinking a person could be helping out with tasks. Like, for example, you have loads of maybe, not loads, but several people who can do it and that other person can't, but they're not necessarily on that engagement. They just help to train up those people to do that themselves. So there could be a variety of ways of going around this so that that particular person, for example, is not on the client, that kind of engagement. But I think it very much depends on case by case basis.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, definitely. Guys, if anyone else watching has more questions, please leave comments and we'll make sure to read them out. Jack, is there anything else you want to add?
I just wanted to ask Milda a quick question regarding sort of her thoughts on the IR market itself. So where do you see sort of the climate of the blue teaming industry to go within the next 5 years? How do you think it's going to sort of alter or change going forward?
To be honest, I think it very much depends on the entire industry, I would say. It's kind of difficult to say about just one part because everything is part of the picture. And just by looking back, I think you could probably see the trajectory more like, because if you remember previously, we didn't have this very clear division between the teams. There was a network administrator, and that person was doing pretty much everything. They've been, doing the compliance bit. They were doing the network administration bit. They were doing probably IT support and then investigating any incidents. And now we have separate teams doing everything different. And, we sometimes have really large security teams in some companies. So in my opinion, that's going to evolve further, especially, as I said, I think that very much depends on the skill set of people and one person not being able to be specialist in everything, and also companies having a variety of systems, especially cloud systems as well. That kind of makes everything spread out a bit and specialize as well. So I think blue teams, they will also be more specialized. There will be people doing just one bit, other people are doing more in some other areas. Even if you think, let's say, about forensic, it's not, I think previously very much was focused on hard disk forensics, while now hard disk is not that much important anymore. There's more cloud systems, for instance, that is necessary because everybody has moved into cloud, and that's something that is important. So the way I think other aspects of blue team development is that what I thought and previously saw, there were most of the time people were just waiting for something to happen. Sitting there and waiting for an incident, not maybe in that sense, but you don't actively look for threats. You don't actively try to search your networks all the time. It's literally something like trying to hunt down whatever might be, and it's being a bit paranoid as well, to expecting something all the time, and you're checking and you're trying to find if there's any intrusion. So I think that kind of passive activities will move more into active activities. Yeah. And I think that's where also threat hunting comes in, because we can't, I think we can't anymore sit back and wait for something to happen.
You have to be prepared, really.
That's something about being prepared. That's being preventive measures in place, but then being active, trying to find yourself something before it appears. Because, well, how do we typically understand that something has happened or systems have breached? Is some kind of announcement in the media that you discover about your company that something happened, from some kind of announcement in the media. That's the worst. So without if we don't want this kind of thing to happen, I think the first thing, and also to minimize the impact, is to be able to detect that ourselves in the company systems. So what we need to do, obviously, is to go and actively look for it. And something else that I actually really liked, it's also from the same BHIS training that I've done, is the kind of move to trap the attackers. To not just allow them to see all your systems and roam freely, but to kind of put all sorts of honeypots everywhere so that they keep tripping everywhere. It's like, I think I posted on my LinkedIn post one time as well, but literally reminds me like Home Alone, if you remember.
With all the traps.
Exactly. So this is the kind of idea as well. You keep making it really, really difficult for them to do something, so they just give up and move on somewhere else to be a target. I think that's how it's
go for.
So that's my idea of how it's moving. Yeah,
definitely. So sort of like decentralizing everything, so you can sort of detect in all different areas, really. Is that sort of what you mean, Milda?
I wouldn't say decentralizing, because for me decentralization means that various different people are doing something under some sort of common governance, but I wouldn't imagine effective incident responding or blue teaming under something that is decentralized. Just because, well, I'm thinking, for example, the way you monitor systems and the way you try to detect anything that's happening, you need to see it in a centralized system where everything correlates. If you have separate monitoring systems, for example, it's really very hard to know where something happened inconsistently, for example. I guess in the worst case, it's possible to somehow cobble something together and several teams doing something like this, but I would say there's more potential for faults and something that is not quite correct. So I would say centralization is definitely a best way to be able to analyze what you collect from all the systems.
Wow.
Just had a comment from Adam as well. Obviously, he was the one who was supposed to be here. He's just kind of watching in the background at the moment. He said, great question, Jack. And he's also interested to see how the industry changes over the next few years, especially with the push for work from home.
Is that in terms of blue teaming or cyber industry, or maybe something a bit more specific?
I think it's blue teaming.
Yeah, I think blue teaming.
I reckon so.
That's a good question, but you know what? I think anything is possible. That's usually my typical answer. It's all about the setup, and obviously our own teams have been working from home because it's not really possible to come to the office, and everybody has to do their work somehow still. So it is possible. I think the remote technologies give us great opportunities to be able to still log into the same systems and to see what is happening, even though we are sitting separately. So it's not necessarily that the office gives us some kind of assurance that it's going to be, better to work from the office. I guess there's more potential for things to happen faster when people are in the same place. Just communication is kind of easier. Yeah. But in terms of effectiveness and ability to do the job, I think it's still possible to do from home. So I suppose this year gave everybody an opportunity to try what works and what doesn't. And I suppose for those aspects that don't work, people just found arrangements on how to make it better. Like, I don't know, for example, maybe there are roles where 100% working from home kind of doesn't work, just because you need to see people, you need to communicate. For whatever reason, it might be managerial roles or maybe some business development roles. But something that is purely technological, I've seen teams that are global teams, they actually in the same company, they don't really meet, although they have offices, but they don't need to go there because there's no point. So they work from home perfectly fine. They still do have meetings online, and then there's a question, why do I need to go to the office to have the same kind of meeting with somebody that I do online anyway?
It's like when you go into a meeting and you just start thinking this could have been an email.
Similar, yeah. But I think in the same kind of thing with blue teams as well. It's very much depends, obviously, on what aspect of that blue team we're speaking about. Let's say forensic investigation is just not something that you need to be in the office. You need to have tools and being able to access the systems and information that you need. For SOC analysts, potentially, who are there 24/7, for example, might be a little bit different. But then again, it's unlikely. I mean, when you think about it, if you're doing it for a client, let's say all the systems are still somehow feeding into some cloud environment. So whether you access that cloud environment from the office or from home, there's still no difference, right? So I think it's still the same.
Of course, yeah. So we're getting close to the end. Just to wrap things up a bit, I've got a couple more questions. We've got, how important is simulations and tabletop exercises as a way of increasing awareness?
It is crucial. I think, well, let me give you this kind of example. Imagine a fighter, a martial arts or boxer or anybody who's there. If they only go to fight when they're going for their competition, how effective can they be? Training all the moves and knowing what to do, how to approach the competition and the kind of enemy, let's say. So I would say this is the same thing. To be able to build that muscle memory and understand where to look next, exactly when something happens, you need to reinforce that learning. It can be, one bit of something from the playbook you want to learn. It could be a tabletop exercise. It could be full-on exercise. It could be blue team versus red team. Anything that is potentially you can think of. It can be anything involving the entire organization. Let's say, announcing that we had an incident and this was the incident that affected XYZ systems. So now legal has to be involved and there has to be some other teams involved. So sort of like crisis exercise as well. So this gives a very, very good way for people to test their response and what we'll do. I mean, essentially when incident happens, especially when it's the first time something like that happens, everybody's under stress. Everybody's just go crazy. What do I do next? So if you've done that before, or if you've not, this attack kind of simulated attack has happened in the past, you just know that next thing I do, this is what I need to do. And I look at here and I ask that person, or I contact somebody, and everything kind of goes smoothly. Many times happens when people just don't know what they're doing. Somebody tries to lead somebody doesn't want them to lead, is becoming, all sorts of other things happening in an organization, and it's not successful. So yeah, training is very, very necessary for teams to be successful.
Definitely, yes. We've also had a question from Ravi Kumar. What is the scope of container security and IoT security in the future?
Right. IoT is an interesting thing because, well, it's not like every organization will have it. I think in terms of, well, cloud systems like containers, yes, there will be, more and more companies using all sorts of cloud technology. So it would be, well, I think it very much depends on which industry we're talking about. Like, for example, as I say, I don't necessarily imagine IoT being used in, for example, fintech. But I would very much imagine IoT being used in manufacturing and industrial, some kind of estates and in utilities, for example. So I suppose it will get adopted more and more, the same with containerization. But it will be specific to certain organizations. It could be also, personal use by people. If somebody wants to have a smart fridge, I don't know. But in terms of companies, I think this is where I'm seeing it more. People speak about automated self-driving cars, for example, but I'm not particularly futuristic. I think I focus on what is in reality in current situation. Because many times we get thrown away. It's just that we get into these fantasies about what will happen in the future instead of looking at what is in the current situation, and it's what is happening now rather than happening in the future. That's something for me that is more important.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we'll just take this last comment that we've got from Ian again. Whilst we consider automated testing, have you or the team invested in intuitive automated testing? This is where the software will learn from the test results and be adaptive to conduct regression tests without human intervention. An example of this is where a defect is discovered, and depending on the actions taken, the automated code can learn and act on historic results.
I've not done this, and I'm not sure whether, to be honest, I've not seen that being done a lot just yet. Or, I just don't have a lot of knowledge about that so far. But my opinion about automation is great for these repetitive tasks. And so potentially there's an area where it could go into. But I wouldn't probably, my opinion generally about the kind of AI and machine learning and the way it's happening, I think it's not likely that it would be great without some human intervention. Just because there are ways to, I wouldn't say manipulate the machines, but there are ways to make it just not always that it can work the way we expect.
Yeah, it's not always perfect.
Yeah, so I think there's always a need for human review and just a kind of making sure that this is not some sort of deviation and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. So I'm never a huge fan of full automation and fully automated systems. But I think for the general, the very basic things that are very repetitive, that can be done, that can be in place.
Definitely. Okay, so I think we'll just wrap this up now. We just had one more question from Siddhartha. So this will be definitely the last one.
Okay.
Between tool-specific and tool non-specific certification, which is better from a career point of view?
So I would always go for non-tool specific certification just because it just gives you more opportunity. It's just wider. You can adapt it to more places, like organizations, more activities potentially. Tool-specific certifications are good if you want to focus in that area. Like, I don't know, for example, if you think about Microsoft certifications or AWS certifications, it is very good in that perspective if you want to work on that specifically, and that shows that you're a specialist. It also could be really good if that's something that your organization uses and you want to become, some sort of specialist in your organization. So I think it very much, like with every other thing that I would ever speak about, it very much depends on your goals and objectives. What exactly do you want to achieve? If you want to be just a specialist in that area, then a general certification would be better. If you want to be a specialist in a certain area, then specific thing would be better.
Okay, amazing. Thank you for everything, both of you, Jack and Milda. And make sure... and thank you everyone for watching as well, and for your time, and also make sure that you do join us in the Cyber Lounge if you haven't already. Make sure that we post a link in the chat for today's coffee chat. So yeah, hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Sure.
Definitely.
Amazing.
And don't remember, we got that resource link as well for the people
oh yeah,
who want
for
to
the
free
BHIS.
Let me just look it up.
Get that
No
link in
worries.
there as well.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think that'd be great.
I think a lot of people might find that useful.
So, do I just post it here in the chat?
But I think, are you posting a summary post? We could probably put that on the
Yeah.
This is
like
just
that.
a link. I just posted here in our video. So
that's fine. I can forward that as well. I can share that to the Cyber Lounge on your behalf. I just want to say thanks to everyone for watching again. I've got Siddhartha, Junaid, Danielle, Scott, everyone. It's been a great coffee chat. Okay, so we'll wrap it up now. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. See you later, guys.
Bye.